Good evening, Facebook family, friends, and associates, and also YouTube. I am simultaneously streaming. I've decided to add YouTube to the mix. So, happy Thursday, everyone. Second day of June, second day of Effective Communication Month. I'm Thecia Jenkins, and I am a speaker, trainer, and consultant. And my areas of expertise are on domestic violence, sexual assault, and also emotional intelligence. And so I've been training on emotional intelligence for probably about 10 years now. And, here's the thing, I actually began to study emotional intelligence because of the work that I was doing with survivors of domestic and sexual violence. Along the way, I've done support groups. And when I first got started in this work 27 years ago, I was a job coach. My initial role was working with survivors of domestic violence to help them to get a job and to be able to maintain that job. And along the way, teaching skills, I realized the importance of something called soft skills. And those soft skills, some of that is around communication, time management, and just how you show up. And so that began my study into emotional intelligence. And when we talk about emotional intelligence, we're really talking about soft skills. And what we are finding more and more, especially in light of the pandemic that we have gone through and continue to go through, is that soft skills are extremely important. And so I am committed to providing professional development and especially to helping professionals. I especially enjoy working with helping professionals such as law enforcement officers, educators, nurses, counselors, and coaches, because emotional intelligence is important to all professionals. However, when we are dealing with people, and many times when you're in law enforcement, you are an educator, a counselor, coach, ministry, that many times when you're working with people, that you may be working with people who are dealing with stress and trauma. And so it's so important to have those soft skills, to have those skills of being able to connect with someone, having those skills around communication. And so in observance of Effective Communication Month, I decided that I would do a 30-day challenge for myself to come on and to share with you about communication. And so do me a favor, if you are here live, go ahead and say hi, and so that I can say hi to you. And also you can give StreamYard permission, because I am using StreamYard. You can give them permission to show you so that I can also keep you engaged in the conversation. And you simply have to go to facebook.com/StreamYard. Facebook.com/StreamYard, and it will allow your comments to show up here on the screen with me. So let's go ahead and dive in, because I don't want these lives to be very long. Let's see. Got somebody who's got a comment there. Hey, that's my roommate, Angela from college. So there we go. Hey, Angela, good to see you. So I'm going to go ahead and dive in. I promised you that over the next 3 days, today, Friday, and Saturday, that I will be providing what's called the 12 blocks to listening, the 12 blocks to listening. So as I shared with you last night, that communication is extremely important. And it is an area that I continue to work on to be a more effective communicator. Over 3 decades in training, development, and basically, even though I didn't call myself a coach when I first got started professionally, that's what I've been doing for the last 3 decades, and probably even longer than that. Probably the last 4 decades is that, I've often been that person that has a listening ear. And so I've been doing coaching and I've been exercising my listening muscle for a very long time. I don't always get it right. There's still some areas I need to work on. So as I was going over this list of the 12 listening blocks, I thought, okay, that's one I need to work on. So I am hopeful that you will find this beneficial. So let me go ahead. We're going to dive in. However, I promised you that I would also bring you a quote. And I found a quote that I thought was really appropriate for this evening. And here we go. This is by Dr. Laurie Buchanan, and it very simply says, "When we listen, we hear someone into existence. When we listen, we hear someone into existence. So if you're here live, and for those who will watch the replay, I want to challenge you to put in the comments section what that quote means to you. What does that quote mean to you when it says, "Hey there, Minister Greenleaf, good to see you"? What does that quote mean to you? When we listen, we hear someone into existence. And come on now, I'm giving myself the challenge to come here for 30 days to share with you. I want to invite you to take the challenge with me on improving our communication. So in the comments section, take a chance and put in there what that quote means to you. When we listen, we hear someone into existence. Very briefly, what that quote means to me, and it just kind of leapt off the screen as I was going through looking for quotes this evening, is that in the work that I've done for the last 3 or 4 decades in working with survivors, working with individuals who are in crisis, is that when we take time to listen, that people feel heard. And I can tell you this, that probably 99% of the time that when I am providing coaching or I go in to do a training, especially around emotional intelligence and leadership skills, is that somebody will come up to me and say, I left my last job because I didn't feel heard, or in my relationship with my partner, I don't feel heard. It makes me feel insignificant. So when we take time to listen to people, we hear them into existence. We let them know, we are validating, I see you, I hear you. Okay, so it's so important. Listening is so important. Minister Greenleaf has put on here, it means that we have to intentionally listen, and then we are connected to a person. They have meaning to us. Exactly, Minister Greenleaf. Angela says that you are acknowledging that they exist so that they are worthy. Exactly. And here's the bottom line. We all want to feel like we're worthy. Everybody wants to feel as though they matter and that they exist. One of my favorite movies of all time is The Color Purple. And I remember Miss Seeley is walking in the field, and I can't remember the other woman's name, but they're talking about The Color Purple, and they're looking at those field of Suge Avery. They're looking at that field of flowers, and Suge is talking to Miss Celia, and she's saying, "You see all those flowers out there? They purple." And she goes, "They just screaming." Basically, I'm paraphrasing the scene, but I can just feel it. They want to be seen. They like saying, "See me." And what she was expressing to Miss Seeley is that I see you. You matter. And here's the thing. In this world today, so many times people feel as though they don't matter. I've had moments where I felt, do I really matter? And when someone leans in and listens to you, and the name of my company, I Am Bold, the L stands for to lean in and listen, because the power of our ability to listen, to lean in and listen, means that we validate another person's existence. And that can make all the difference in the world. So what I want to share with you, we're going to dive into the first 4 blocks to listening. Because when we are in relationship, whether it's friendship, whether it's with a significant other, whether it's on your job, in your ministry, whatever the case may be, listening is so important. Yes, the words that we speak are powerful. That's how I make my living, is by the words that I speak. However, more importantly, it is what I hear from my audience. It is what I hear from the client that I am working with, so that what I can meet their need. And number 1, validate that I see you, I hear you, and you matter. So moving on in, let's talk about the 4 blocks to listening. Block number one is comparison. So comparison will block you from being able to listen to what the other person is saying. And what comparison sounds like in your head is, well, her situation is not that bad. I don't know why she even whining about it, because you know what? I went through this back in 1987, and really, she's going to complain about that? I wonder how she made that grade on that, because I always make a better grade, or I wonder what she did. Just always comparing. So the whole time someone is talking, every word that comes out of their mouth, you are creating this whole comparison story. Asking, "Am I better? Is their situation worse off?" To the point that you are not even listening to what that person has said. So ask yourself, when you're engaged in conversation, do you find yourself doing the comparison game? And many times when we are comparing ourselves, what we are doing is invalidating the other person's experience. We are invalidating what they are sharing with us because we are constantly in a state of comparison. So that's block number one, comparison. Block number two is mind reading. When we are in conversation with someone, maybe sometimes you find yourself, sitting there and wondering, now, he said that, but I wonder if he was talking about that issue that was going on 2 weeks ago that we had going on. Because you're always mind reading. When you're mind reading, you don't take people at face value. You ask someone how they're doing, and they say, "I'm good." And you're sitting there, you say you good. But see, we had words last night, and you just don't want to talk about the situation anymore. Yeah, you're not really good. And so then you maybe start going in on that person. I know you're not really doing good because I'm not doing good because, we said XYZ to each other last night. So I know you can't be doing good. And the reality is that maybe your partner, maybe the person you're talking to, they really are doing good because they said their piece last night and they haven't thought about it anymore. Perhaps you are the one who's constantly ruminating about the issue. However, you want to get into mind reading. So ask yourself, do I find myself second guessing what someone is saying to me because I'm reading a whole lot more into the conversation? Yesterday, I shared with you the quote by George Bernard Shaw that very simply says that the greatest illusion that communication has occurred is that we believe that there was communication that occurred. So here's the reality is that sometimes we believe that we're having a conversation with someone and we are really not communicating because we are sitting there the whole time trying to guess the real meaning of what someone is saying. It also can signify a lack of trust. And I say this from personal experience, that when we have a lack of trust, we're always thinking, is that what they really meant? I don't think that's what they really meant. So ask yourself, do you find yourself second guessing people and find yourself mind reading? Because again, when you mind read, that means that you are not listening. Block number three. Block number three is rehearsing. And when we are rehearsing in our communication, it's kind of like if you think about the, what do they call that? The double Dutch jump rope, where you kind of like lean in, lean out, and you're trying to see where you could jump in. So that's when you're in that conversation and you just like, okay, okay, she said that. Oh yeah, I'm going to give you a piece of my mind now. Yeah, I'm not going to let you get away with that. You think I let that slide? Oh, I'm getting ready to tell you exactly how I feel. So it's where you are constantly waiting for that moment to pounce in and rehearsing. You're listening. Everything the person is saying, you're thinking about, what's my rebuttal? What is my rebuttal? And many times that may be because we are on the defense. And I hope you're starting to see a pattern here, because when I identify the areas that I allow myself to block listening, I realize that there is a pattern based on my past experiences and also based on my particular behavioral style. So hopefully, as you listen to this, and I want to encourage you to come back and listen to it again, is asking yourself, do I see a pattern of behavior when it comes to my communication? So again, rehearsing. Do you find yourself, when you're communicating with your supervisor, with your direct reports, with your partner, with your children, whomever it is that you are in relationship with, do you find yourself doing the double Dutch dance that they're talking and you're like, okay, I'm gonna come back, and I got this come back for this, and I got this come back for this. Because here's the thing: if you are rehearsing what you are going to respond and actually reacting to, then are we really able to listen and hear that person into existence? That part. All right, here is the final one that we will go over tonight. Number 4 is filtering. Filtering is a block to listening. And so here's the thing. And Angela says, yes. So here's the thing. When we are filtering, it means it's almost like the rehearsing one, that we are reading more into the situation, that we are also, we're not really listening intentionally, if you will. We're listening to make sure that everything is okay. So, for example, your boss maybe contacts you on Teams, and you're like, oh, what are they calling me on Teams for? No, I'm doing my work. And so they've got you on Teams and they're talking, and you're like zeroed in. You're listening initially. However, once you realize that it's not about your productivity, it's not about the report that's due in the next 2 hours, that they were just checking in and saying, hey, how you doing? You check out, you start listening, you start going back, you got them on the screen and you're typing your report up, and maybe got the TV in the background and you're Netflixing as you're working, because the only thing you need to know is that my job is okay and that they're not micromanaging me. That's called filtering, that when you check in just long enough to make sure that your world is okay. Maybe your partner says, hey, babe, we need to talk. And all of a sudden, maybe you experience what I often call the amygdala hijack, actually coined by Daniel Goleman for emotional intelligence. However, your partner or maybe your child says, hey, can I have a conversation with you? Can we talk? And you're on pins and needles until you have that conversation, because you're like, oh my God, what happened? Did my child wreck the car? Does my partner want to separate? You know, if my boss calls me in, do they want to lay me off? All these thoughts start going through your mind. I don't know about you, but sometimes I have an overactive imagination. And so here's the thing. Finally, when you have that conversation with that person and you're leaning in and you are listening, and then when they go, oh, I just wanted to see what you wanted to do for vacation, you're like, oh, that's all. And then you stop listening. You kind of do that, what we call pseudo listening, because what you realize is, hey, my world's okay. And could that not be that maybe there is a root of insecurity? So when we are insecure, we tend to filter in our listening. We are just checking in long enough to see that all is well with our world. So here they are again. Number 4, going backwards, filtering. Do you find yourself only listening long enough to say, okay, all is good with me. I don't, okay, I'm checking out of this conversation. It's not. Or number 3, rehearsing. Do you find yourself doing the double dutch, where you're in and out of the conversation because you are making sure that you're going to have a comeback when it's your turn to talk? And here's the thing, you just might decide to talk over the person because they have said something and you're like, oh no, you get ready to get a piece of my mind. So do you find yourself rehearsing in your conversations? Or do you find yourself being a mind reader? You got your crystal ball out and you're like, yeah, that's not what you really meant. I know what you really meant. Oh, you was throwing a little shade at me. Okay. I see how this is going. So are you the mind reader in your conversations? And then number 1, comparison. Do you find yourself showing up in a conversation and constantly comparing your story to the person's story who is sharing with you, sharing their experience, and finding yourself saying things like, well, I've had it harder than that. Oh, my experience at work was worse than that. Oh, my experience with COVID was worse than that. Because when you are comparing, again, we are not creating space for that other person to be understood and to feel validated. We are not listening and hearing them into existence, as Dr. Lori Buchanan says. So I leave you with the quote for this evening. Again, when we listen, we hear someone into existence. Who did you hear in existence today? Who did you take the time to truly listen to? Or did you find yourself comparing, mind reading, rehearsing, or filtering? This is Thecia Jenkins, and these are 4 of the 12 blocks to listening. I hope that you found this information beneficial and of value, and I'll see you tomorrow evening. I'll be coming live at 9 p.m. I have a previous engagement, but I will be coming back to share the next 4. And so if there's any comments, let's see what we got here. Hey, Isabel, good to see you. Good to see you. I hope you're able to join tomorrow night at 9. Angela, thank you so much for joining. Minister Greenleaf, I don't know if she's still here, but thank you all for being here live. And for those who will watch the replay, please jump into the conversation. Let's work on having more effective communication. Let's work on our blocks to listening so that what we can listen and that what we can hear people into existence. I'll see you tomorrow night.